Hello and welcome to the captaincy video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. It's a full set of fixtures to look forward to and once again an array of interesting captaincy candidates to choose from. My name is Joe and joining me to find the best captaincy options for game week 34 is David. David, how are you?
Yeah, well, you've caught me in quite excellent spirits, and would I be feeling this way if it wasn't for Chris Wood? Perhaps not.
No.
Incredible week. So we both talked him up last week, didn't we? As a sort of a jovial outside bet for the captaincy. But 20 points. And the thing is, a few people were quite shocked to see him, do so well. I mean, I wouldn't have predicted him to get 20 points, of course. But we're not surprised, are we, Joe, that he did well because, of course, his stats have been incredible over a prolonged period. Yeah. Wolves' defence had not been particularly impressive when they played anyone who wasn't in the bottom two. So it was a perfect marriage, really. In terms of the captaincy itself, I, like you, I went for Nacho for sort of similar reasons.
Another differential. I didn't even know that was going to be a differential.
Yeah, I mean, it made a huge difference. And we were comparing him with Salah, weren't we? And we looked at the last 6 and last 4. And we could see that Nacho was getting more shots than Salah, more big chances than Salah, but crucially, considerably more shots on target than him. So he was clearly the better option on paper if you just ignore the opposition. And then, of course, if you look at the opposition as well, Crystal Palace's defence had been conceding more chances, bigger chances, worse XGC than Newcastle. So on paper, take away ownership and backing in the captaincy, Nacho just was what we felt was the best captaincy option, and it's come through. It's really nice. In a season that's been unpredictable stats-wise often, and a lot of low moments and dull moments, for us to go big on some guys last week and them to both get 20 points each, because we both will go off with captain Nacho, is really encouraging and gives us a good platform to go forward and have a look at who's the best captain for this one.
It's a nice thing because we reel off lots of stats each week, and some people might go, well, why are they doing that? Why bother with XG? Why bother with shots on target? Shouldn't it matter what they do on the pitch? Well, we're trying to predict, and it's so satisfying when the stats come out into fruition, into actual FPL points, which is what it's all about, really. And it's very frustrating when that doesn't happen. And I remember many times in previous seasons, Ibrahimovic at Manchester United, I remember his goal drought, despite good underlying stats, was so frustrating. But Chris Wood comes good. Let's move on to game week 34 captaincy. So Spurs are back in the mix, but we're not going to start with them first. I think we should start with Leicester assets against Southampton. That is not to say we don't think Spurs assets are going to be great options, but I just wanted to start with them because Nacho has been the informed striker at the moment, and once again he's against a very leaky defence. So Leicester, I put the last 4 stats up on the last 4 weeks stats up on the screen. Just to help, really, just to show Nacho's expected goal involvement is high shots on target, high shots inside the box, and indeed high amount of goals, really. And it shows that Tielemans is still the chances created guy, and Vardy, well, let's say Vardy is having some shots, but he's not quite in Nacho's league. So Nacho's my current bus captain. Is he yours as well?
He is at the moment, and that's only because I actually sold Harry Kane to get to Vardy. Now, that's not me saying that I will definitely switch to Harry Kane, but when it was bus captain time, it was a little bit easier for me to just put that armband on Nacho. And as you said, Nacho is unbelievable form that he's in, and what makes him really nice for people like me and you, Joe, who enjoy the stats, is that he's not a stats buster. He's just a stats guy. Like he delivers on them, which is really handy because, which in my opinion, shows that there's sustainability there because he's able to keep this up over a long period of time. I've always said that my 3 favourite stats for assessing someone's captaincy ability related to the goals I think they can score are shots in the box, big chances, and shots on target, because that way you're assessing the volume of their shots, the quality of their shots, and the accuracy of their shots, because the 3 of those combined, if they all marry up, that's a good player. And obviously the XG is very high for Nacho, higher than Vardy as well, even though obviously Vardy's the penalty taker. So that means that Nacho really is having a right go, which is great. in terms of the raw numbers compared to the rest of the league. 16 shots in the last 6 in the box for Iheanacho,
Wow.
which is joint third best in the league. But it gets better as we go along. There's other stats. 7 big chances, which is the joint best, up there with Chris Wood. Let's not forget.
Yes.
And then for shots on target, he's 12, which is second best, behind only the one and only Chris Wood. So in all of those stats, he's right up there. In compared to other players in the Premier League. And I always say, if you've got a player up this end of those stats, because Kane's up there as well, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. Yeah. Salah is up there for some of those stats, not all of them. The point is that he's behaving like a premium player in the way that he is operating on the pitch right now. And I can't see any reason why that would hold up, especially with the fact that Leicester, they know what happened last year. It's been kind of like the elephant in the room for them, apparently, according to the manager, for a lot of the season, but in a good way, in the sense that it really, really has been motivating them to absolutely make sure they don't slip up again this season. And you saw against Crystal Palace that the mentality there is a good one, because it could have been easy at this stage of the season. People are tired, and you're running out of time to make things count, and you do still have a sort of a cushion to just let that game wash over you. Being 1-0 down, that is, at half time. And Crystal Palace, I think, had not lost an away match that they'd led at half-time in something like 2 years. Oh. So what Leicester achieved there was they managed to get a team that typically, when it scores first away from home, wins, to not roll over, but concede twice and lose the game. And that is impressive to me from a mentality point of view, because this is the time of the season, isn't it, when we do have to think about motivation. As for Southampton, yeah, I think they're a team that I think have got steadily worse in the last 6 weeks, because I've been comparing defences between last 6 matches with last 2. So in the last 6 matches, their expected goals conceded was 10.05, which was the 8th worst in the league. Which normally, when someone's hanging around there, I'm sort of a little bit and and especially when we consider that Spurs playing Sheffield United. Sheffield United are actually bottom of the league over the last 6 for expected goals conceded. So are Palace. You've got Spurs and Man City playing those 2 teams. So over the last 6, Southampton don't look as bad a defence as those. But when we look at last 2 matches, there's a bigger difference. Now, Southampton crawl a lot closer to the bottom end of the table. Their XGC over the last 2 matches is 4.41. That's the 4th worst in the league. Palace, West Ham and West Brom are the teams that are worse than them there. And I think the thing with me about why that is, I would consider that particularly worrying for Southampton, and then therefore also encouraging for Leicester, is that the teams they've played over that period are teams that historically haven't shown too much of an affinity for XG. It was Spurs, who, as we know, their team's XG over the season hasn't been as good as you'd expect, and West Brom. So I think I can't really see Southampton getting a clean sheet here. No. And because of Iheanacho's form, I can't really see a blank either. So from him, I think very quickly he's gone from being the explosive alternative to being like the safe, automatic captain, which is still good. But of course, we do need to compare him with Spurs, Sheffield United, and the Man City game as well. But he's right up there in the conversation, definitely.
I think this is one of those weeks where the narrative is. A lot of people have Leicester assets. A lot of people have Spurs assets. Spurs are against Sheffield United. Leicester against Southampton. 2 attacking teams on paper against 2 leaky defences. So it's probably going to come down to Iheanacho and Vardy captainers versus Son, Bale or Kane captainers, mainly Kane captainers. So I think that's maybe what the narrative we're looking at for the captaincy this week. But of course, there are other options as well. So let's have a look at those worst defences last 4. So you mentioned last 6 and last 2. So let's have a look sort of in the middle, last 4. And that shows indeed that Crystal Palace are still the worst. They've conceded 14 big chances. And then you've got West Brom, Newcastle, Tottenham themselves, West Ham's defence, poor. Burnley, they've turned into an attacking side rather than a defensive side. And then Southampton and then Sheffield. So this is the bit I'm looking at really. So Southampton have conceded 11 big chances. They've conceded 9 goals. And they've been marginally unfortunate if you look at it that XG that way, because their XG is under 7 goals conceded. And in terms of Sheffield United, well, they've been marginally perhaps lucky to only concede 6 goals. They've big chances conceded has been 10 in the last 4, but it's 7.31 xG conceded, so well over 7 goals they should have scored. They should have conceded rather. So yeah, I mean, are you getting, because that's what we're looking at, Spurs v Leicester assets for the captaincy. Are you getting an inkling that Sheffield United's defence is perhaps improving, or are they still awful?
Well, I mean, I think in a way, because of how bad they've been, they could still be improving and awful at the same time.
Yeah.
So they're coming from a low base, which I think we have to remember. Yeah, but I do have more of a kind of worry at the back of my mind with Sheffield United, I think, than I do with Southampton. As you said, they're kind of in a similar part of the table.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, some of the teams they've played over the last 4 matches are teams that have actually, I don't know, so they played Brighton, Wolves, Arsenal and Leeds, and I kind of would have expected them to be a lot worse on that XGC table, really. Because even though Brighton don't score very many, their XG is normally quite high.
Yeah.
You know, Arsenal as well, you know, I would have expected them to be a team that could achieve a high XG against them. Leeds, as we know, an attacking side generally. Wolves, less so. But yeah, basically Sheffield United just aren't doing as badly as I expected them. And I think some people have kind of pointed to the fact that now they've been relegated, it wouldn't be the first team to achieve some freedom from that. You know, once the fear of relegation is gone and they're just preparing for next season. And to be perfectly honest, that team is probably going to stay as it is. Like, I can't really imagine anyone's going to come in and buy any of their players.
It's already a championship quality side, so
yeah.
Job done.
Yeah. The point is that team, I can't see it getting broken up. I can't see anyone coming in and taking any of those players away. I mean, the defenders have been pretty good, like Basham, McConnell and Egan, but they spent large portions of the season injured, so they haven't had a chance to kind of remind any suitors that they're worth buying. So I think there's a lot of, you know, reason for them to kind of like really give these games a go. So yeah, that is at the back of my mind, and it's a slight doubt, and it's slightly irrational in a way because it's Sheffield United, right? Like they've been so bad all year, and if you look at away games this season, they've conceded 31 goals in 16 away games, and that is the joint second worst behind only Southampton. Well, of course, Southampton are at home this week, so you know, discount them, I suppose. So they're away from home, they are terrible. You know, they've got 4 points on the road all season, which is dreadful. It's 7 worse than 7 below the second worst for that stat. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say I think Sheffield United are going to go win this game. I don't even think they're going to draw it. I think Spurs will win. They've got a point to prove after the cup final. The problem is, it's Kane.
Yeah.
You know what he's like. And the thing is, I mean, his own personal stats, if you're happy for us to move on to that.
Well, let's put those on. Once again, last 4 stats up here for Kane, and it shows, 6 big chances. He's top of the tree by miles.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
Spurs.
So if Spurs get anything, which they should, it's going to come through him. I mean, he's a penalty taker as well. So even if we just ignore the fact that he's fantastic from open play, that's going to play into it as well. And then if you compare him again, if we just look at him compared to the rest of the league, and I'm going last 6 here. But it's usually, I think, you know, he's sustained his form. So I think if you look at last 6, last 4, last 2, comparing him to the likes of Nacho and the others, I think it's still going to be kind of fairly similar. So last 6 then, well, I mean, I'm just going to compare him with Nacho, to be honest, because that's what people really want to hear. They've both had the same number of shots in the box, 16.
Yeah.
They've both had the same number of big chances, 7. And then the only thing that you can really separate them on for goal threat is shots on target, 12 for Nacho, 11 for Kane. But when there's only a 1-shot difference, you know, we see that as much of a muchness.
They're both
really
great options for the armband, basically, is what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And they both have some creative potential as well, but basically because they're playing in a team where they have a good partnership with someone else. So Son and Kane have one. So, you know, Kane's created 2 big chances. And then Nacho's playing with Vardy, so he's created 4 big chances. So they both have assist potential too. So it is tough because they both in terms of form players, in terms of their own statistical form, are basically on a par with each other. And then the thing with what may separate it may be the defences, and I just don't know how much of a purchase I can kind of get on what to expect from Sheffield United. Whereas I feel like I would find it easier predicting Southampton to roll over than I would predict Sheffield United. But as I said, that's just my personal opinion. I don't think that people should take it as gospel.
No.
And that, but by the way, that's before we even get into effective ownership. How many people are going to captain Kane?
Yeah.
Because they will just do it.
We have to start
So
strategic. So for example, last week for the captaincy, we both went for Nacho. We both, in a similar position in our league. So obviously we, with Chris Wood as well, we've moved up. We've made that jump. Now I'm starting to think, well, I want to consolidate that, and perhaps the best way strategically for me to spend a week consolidating that is just to go for the very good captaincy option of Kane and his effective ownership. Just cover that, and if Nacho does well, great as well. Kane does well, great, and there you go. Because there is that, obviously, in the back of your mind, that small risk. Have I got it wrong? Do I need that differential? So it's going to depend on your league position, really, and your mini league position. So that's what happens towards the end of the season. So I find with the captaincy, there are good times to be different.
Yeah, you have to get it right. Like if you get it wrong, if you go against the grain and the grain is not making a mistake, then you do set yourself up for a punishment. We've gone for Nacho because we genuinely felt with very clear and what we felt obvious reasons that Iheanacho was in better statistical form than the popular candidate Salah. We felt the defence he was going to face was worse than the defence the popular candidate was going to face. And because I own Salah, so I felt protected against the captaincy, and because his effective ownership wasn't quite as massive, because he's convinced enough people to sell him, for example, it's kind of less scary. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes there are weeks where if let's say you fancy the second most popular candidate, but the popular candidate is still flipping amazing, then maybe that is the week just to play it safe. Especially, I'm actually the same as you, Joe. I was thinking I've made a big leap this week. I want to try and consolidate my position.
Don't want to lose
in my
that.
mini leagues,
that's the worst feeling, isn't it? You have a great game week, and then the next week you have a bad one, and it's all gone.
Yeah,
just back to
you've got to make it
one.
count.
Yeah,
it's not a great game week. It's only a great game week if you can have the great game week and then have a one afterwards just to keep you in that place rather than like bungee jump.
Let's move on, because let's just go back to those worst defences once again. Palace, the worst, which is one of the many reasons we went for Iheanacho last week. Let's move on to City. So City play Palace next. Now we have a problem with City. They're rather good. They've just come off the back of a cup final victory. There's a lot of cup games to go for them, and they've got the league sewn up. You would think so. Will Palace be their priority? That's the tricky one. Is who's going to play. So once again, last 4 matches stats up on the screen, and it shows that if all the players we want to play, De Bruyne is a great captaincy shout this week. 13 chances created, last 4, 13 goal attempts, and he's minutes per goal attempts in the box every 42.5 minutes, and he's had 6 shots on target, not too shabby. Mahrez as well, 13 shots he's had. Sterling, 12 shots. Gundogan, 9 chances created, 8 shots, all for 5.8 million. So these are the players you want to play, but will they play? And is it the priority? And I actually think in this game, Torres, with his 8 shots, his likelihood that he'll play, as he is in the B team of Man City, could be a good shout for the captaincy. That's my Chris Wood moment there for Torres. But yeah, what do you think? City, is it just simply too risky with rotation?
Yeah, I think so. The PSG game is clearly so much bigger.
Yeah.
The gap that they have over Man United in the league, because United drew with Leeds, has massively helped them. If United had beaten Leeds, then they would have been 8 points off, which is not insurmountable. Especially if City are prioritising other competitions. I felt that if United won that, we're on the outside chances of a title race once again. But yeah, I can't see it happening now. Palace, I think they can beat with the B team, no problem. I was impressed with the way that Palace actually set up against Leicester in the first sort of 50 minutes on Monday night. I didn't see that coming at all, because they're on the beach, really. I think as well, wherever they're allowed to go with the COVID restrictions, they're in the end of their garden, which is basically as far as you can go for your holiday at the moment, really. But still the same sort of concept. So I was impressed that they were able to set up in a quite organised fashion. So I think they will try and do that again. Against City. And what's really interesting actually is that what I felt they did really well against Leicester was that they crowded the middle so much, so that they Iheanacho was outnumbered. Iheanacho and Vardy were outnumbered by sort of the two banks of four playing very centrally, but also meant that Maddison was crowded out as well because they were Leicester were playing a 3-4-1-2. So it meant that the central midfielders for Leicester were there was a gap between them and Maddison, so he didn't have as much support, so it was easier to crowd him out. And basically the way that they crowded that middle, just everybody was outnumbered, and it meant that even when you had the fullbacks having the opportunity to get on the ball, they couldn't really find anyone because their options were all limited. Now, I was listening to a bit of analysis on the EFL Cup final from Jamie Carragher in the build-up to that, where he was talking about the teams that crowd the middle tend to do better against Man City because they are a similar team that operate through the middle. And if they're a team that, because they don't really have that much height and they're built around intricate passes through the middle to get to their relatively shorter players who are better with their feet in the middle. If you can cut off the supply lines through the middle and allow them to try and put balls in from wide areas, it doesn't work because they're a team that isn't really built around crosses into the box as much, and he was saying there was stats to say that the games that they've lost are games when they've been forced to play more balls from out wide. So if Palace go with the exact same setup they did against Leicester, and if they do that against Man City, now I'm not saying they're going to win the game, I'm not even saying they're going to draw the game, but there's a possibility that they can frustrate Man City's style, and we have actually seen Palace do that a few times in the last number of years.
Andros Townsend won the goal, I remember, against City. Well, and
they've got players for the counter-attack as well. So that's how they'll set up. They know that Zaha and Eze and Ayew can ask questions of that City defence if they can spring out at just the right moment. So, for this particular game, I wouldn't be too confident that Man City would smash them because especially if they're going to have to go there with their B team, which looks likely. Then just bringing it back round to Kane and Iheanacho, obviously already top of our kind of candidate list. Minutes per expected goal involvement last 6. Kane is top. Iheanacho's second, the best Man City player for that, and because this obviously negates minutes played because it's minutes per expected goal involvement, is Jesus, who is 12th. There is no Man City player that, ignoring how often he started, is really even close to sort of like form points potential from an individual. Forget opposition here. There's no Man City player that comes even close to Kane and Iheanacho. So. Yeah, I'm not considering a Man City player this week.
Okay, well let's see if we can get another one going here. So Chelsea, now another team doing rather well in cup competitions, but we're looking at Chelsea against Fulham. Now Fulham, another. Well, let's have a look at their defence because in my head they're a poor defence. Let's have a look. Fulham, where are they? Last 4. They're actually a middling defence. So they've conceded 8 big chances. They've conceded 7 goals. And they've been marginally unlucky because their expected goals conceded is under 6, actually. So they're not doing too badly there in Fulham. So they should concede, but they might not concede a hatful, seems to be Fulham. So Chelsea assets last 4. Mount looks to have got the highest expected goal involvement. Pulisic, if he plays. Werner, if he plays, is in form. Havertz, if he plays. Alonso, if he plays. All of these could score. But I keep saying if he plays. So once again, is it a case that they just can't compete with Kane and Iheanacho this week?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I said, Kane and Iheanacho are, top of the pile for their own form. And the thing with Chelsea is that they are increasingly becoming like Man City in that you just cannot rely on certain players to play. There is more onus for them to be involved in the Premier League, obviously, because their place in the Premier League table is far from certain, and they could win the Champions League, but of course you can't bank on it. So they are going to have to try and spread their best team over the Real Madrid game and the Fulham game. But I still kind of feel like the Chelsea B team. Or it's probably not really the B. He doesn't really have a B team. He has like an A.5 team, really. I still feel that team can beat Fulham. But at the same time, I don't know who's going to play, and I don't know who's going to do well. And of course, the other thing is that Fulham, as you said, a middling defence. They are a kind of team that are capable of shutting out a big team. They're also a team that's capable of getting beat 3-0. They're a team that's capable of spending 85 minutes shutting out a big team and losing 2-0 with some late mistakes. So I never really know what I'm going to get from Fulham. I never really know what I'm going to get from the Chelsea lineup. So
No,
yeah,
I mean,
no.
if I was to go there, which I'm not, because of all the reasons you've just mentioned, it would be Mason Mount with 8 chances created, last 4, 7 shots in the box, 6 of those on target, very accurate when he's shooting inside the box. He had 15 shots, so he's just shooting everywhere he can. And then this adds to it as well. So he's a midfielder. He's got 17 crosses, so there is the assist potential there. So he's got a bit of everything. Just that slow accumulation of points, like we used to see with De Bruyne. You would get an assist, you get a bonus, you would get maybe a goal or two. So for me, it would be Mason Mount would be the one. But as you said, it's just the threat of rotation, and you never know what you're going to get with Fulham. So looking at those fixtures, see who else we could go for. I mean, I think we've got our minds set really on a Spurs or Leicester asset, Iheanacho or Kane. But there are other options. And of course, Chris Wood,
Here he is again.
on form. He's against West Ham. And going back to those worst defences, West Ham are pretty poor at the moment. 11 big chances conceded. I'm actually thinking of getting rid of Chris Wood this week. This will make you laugh.
Ooh.
I know. Where everyone's now thinking of trying to get Chris Wood in. But I've got to think, do I think Kane or Chris Wood are better? I have 2 free transfers.
Oh, I see.
So,
right, yeah.
Is Chris Wood Kane quality? Maybe he is. Maybe he is.
I tell you what, Joe. Something I learned from you many years ago was that if you feel like a player is going to smash it this week, or at least do well, or get something, then I wouldn't sell him. Now I know it's hard to say because you perhaps need to sell him to get to Kane, whereas I only would need to sell Vardy, and I feel that's actually easier because I don't really think Vardy's
I
got
could sell
that goal
Vardy as well, but
yeah. But the thing with Chris Wood is, well, I mean, we've already touched on his form. I'll just do it again because I like talking about Chris Wood. Obviously, last 6 matches, he's second best in the whole league for shots in the box. He's joint top for big chances, and no player has had more shots on target than him. So he is quite literally the form player in the Premier League in terms of stats.
So I'd be mad to sell him against leaky West Ham.
I try not to be too partisan with how I describe other people, but I couldn't do it personally. I couldn't do it. But the other thing is West Ham. I do want to talk about them because I think I've seen people saying they don't want to sign Chris Wood because he's got tough fixtures, but I don't think West Ham is a tough fixture for attackers playing them. It's a tough fixture for Pope, it's a tough fixture for Tarkowski and me, but it isn't for Wood and Vidra and all that, because since they lost Declan Rice, they have just been absolutely shelling goals. And so in the last 5 matches, they conceded 11 goals, and I think Rice was only missing for one of those, so the majority of those have come when he's not there. But arguably, it's got worse since they got an injury to Cresswell and they got an injury to Masuaki. Now, I covered this last week on last week's captaincy video, but I will mention it again. They really are not the same team without Cresswell. He's almost as important to the way they move the ball as, say, Tierney would be for Arsenal, because the way they play that system with a 3-4-1-2 is what they're trying without Antonio, is that in that back 3, you have 2 traditional centre-backs in, if you were going to pick their best team, Bonner and Dawson. Now, they're in the team to win the ball, win tackles, etc. And Cresswell, of course, is capable of doing that, but he's a fullback traditionally. So his role within that back 3 is to get the ball moving on that side of the pitch, feed players like Masuaku when he's fit, get the ball into the middle like Noble and Souček, or overlap with Masuaku and get into those channels and get balls into the box. Now, when you take that guy out of the team, you instantly replace him with a more traditional centre-back, which is what they've had to do just in terms of staffing. It's like Diop, Ogbonna, Balbuena, or Dawson, whichever 3 of those you think is the best to start. You take away the ability for them to basically, it's a bit like rugby, like field position. If they don't have the ability to actually move through the different systems, then it means that they're actually under pressure more often because they can't get the ball out. And it's affected Lingard's output because his shots in the box, big chances, everything, shots on target. Since Cresswell has picked up this injury, he doesn't get the service anymore.
I mean, I've got the last 4 stats. This is all players, so we haven't narrowed it down to teams or anything. This is all players. Expected goal involvement, last 4, as you can see, Chris Wood right up there, just behind Harry Kane. And then where's Lingard? He's not there. I mean, Lingard was on this just last week when we were looking at the 4 before. Lingard was there, but Cresswell, as you were saying, that seems to be the common link. Lingard disappearing off the charts.
and Masuaku as well. They both got injured at the same time, so then they had to put, I think, Ben Johnson in. And it just completely kills his output. And the thing is, because there's less going on behind him that gets the ball moving or gets the ball to him, he's had to drop deep to pick up the ball, and then of course he's not in the right positions as well. And it's even worse over the last 2 matches as well. We've got an article on site at the moment just comparing his previous 6 with his last 2, and it's chalk and cheese really the difference. But what it really tells me is that Burnley have the ability to go into that game and really put West Ham under a lot of pressure, because if they can't get the ball to their attacking players, they can't get the ball up the pitch, they can't get the ball down the channels they'd usually ask teams questions, then it's easier for that opposing team to go in the opposite direction. And that's why, if you look at the last 2 matches, that's the 2 matches they've not had Cresswell. West Ham have the second worst XGC in the whole league, 4.81. They've played a Chelsea team that generally isn't too attacking. It's very kind of like possession based and kind of wear the opposition out. And Newcastle, Chelsea and Newcastle have basically managed to get West Ham to be the second worst for XGC. Now we'll have a press conference update obviously on Cresswell this week, and if Cresswell's back, then arguably I think that then Wood's not as good an option. But if Cresswell's still out and so is Masuaku, and you really want to make up some ground, then you could do a heck of a lot worse than going for a differential captaincy of Chris Wood. So there we are.
Well, we have game week 33 as evidence that it can pay off. Yeah, you're talking me into not only keeping Chris Wood, but maybe captaining him. But yeah, he's a good option. Looking at this table here, it looks like Vardy would be the one. If for those like you and me who don't have Kane, Vardy making way for Kane actually might make sense. And you notice that Vardy wasn't in the captaincy chat that we were talking about Leicester, but it was Nacho we were focusing on.
Exactly.
So yeah, last 4 expected goal involvement. Looking at some of these other names here, looking at some of the other fixtures as well. Pereira, West Brom is another great differential captaincy shout. He is 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th best player currently in terms of expected goal involvement behind Kane, Wood and Salah, and he plays Wolves, who, as we know, just conceded 4. So yeah, I think he's a great option there. There are others as well. Manchester United against Liverpool is going to tempt a lot of people. A lot of people are going to go Salah still. A lot of people are going to go for Fernandes still. But we're putting them in the bottom of the barrel section here. So am I right to do that? Have I misjudged editorially? Should I have said everyone should captain Fernandes and Salah?
No.
Or is that 0-0?
That's a 0-0, isn't it? That's 0-0 country all the time. I mean, anyone who's watched these videos enough will know that the second that anyone comes to me to ask me how I think Man United will do against this top 6 team, it's a 0-0. It's a 0-0 all the time. I mean, the Leeds game, it's not a top 6 game, but I mean, Leeds certainly, would see themselves one of the kind of the big teams. Historically they're a big club as well. So there's a lot kind of on the line there. So I think that backs it up as well. I mean, and Leeds are flipping fit as well. The fitness they've got, I think that is like a top 6 team. So that just adds to. So I mean, the 0-0s United have had this year. 0-0 against Leeds. They beat Man City 2-0. But either way they kept a clean sheet. So I'm not expecting Liverpool to get much here. But Chelsea 0-0. Arsenal 0-0, Liverpool 0-0, just Man City 0-0 game week 12, Chelsea 0-0 game week 6. Just I can't see this being anything other than 0-0. So to be honest, if you put a gun to my head and told me I had to captain anyone from this match, it would probably be Luke Shaw.
Yeah, and I think so. On the Scoutcast tonight, to timestamp this, as we're recording this Tuesday morning, and it should go out on Tuesday lunchtime, hopefully. On Tuesday night on the Scoutcast, I'll be reeling out my assist imminent table and also my goals imminent table. But it was something I put up on Twitter over the weekend as well, looking at attacking defenders. Luke Shaw is now the most likely to get assists out of all defenders at the moment. So he's overtaken Alexander-Arnold, and he's a couple of million cheaper. So yeah, Luke Shaw.
And he gets bonuses when they keep clean sheets. He gets bonuses because of that chance creation. He I think got 8 points this week, but he gets bonus like all the time. So good player. He's
another good option there. I mean, other options there. I mean, I've said scrape the barrel really with Manchester United and Liverpool. I mean, I guess Mason Greenwood, if you wanted to go Manchester United, once again we're sort of banging his drum. there, I think he's a good option if you wanted to go down the Manchester United route. But I think there, Nacho is showing his class there, Harry Kane, and of course Chris Wood. But my tip would be Pereira against Wolves, for if you want to go really different. If Chris Wood's just too mainstream, this is the way you should go. But in the meantime, anyone else you wanted to add, or have we scraped the barrel with Manchester United?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
The games we've not looked at, I think, are Brighton, Leeds. That could be a 0-0. Everton, Aston Villa. You never know what you're going to get with either of those teams. Newcastle, Arsenal. Could there be a case to be made for Alisson, Maximan if we really want to scrape that barrel?
Joe Ellington's week.
Yeah. Or Callum Wilson, I think, will start this week, and he will have a point to prove, won't he? And he could get something. But either way, you never really know what you're going to get with Newcastle or Arsenal, really. So from those games we've not really gone into in any detail. There's a reason for it. There's not reliable form on either side of the ball, really. So I think we stick with our big three: Kane, Nacho, and Wood. They're the three.
There they are. Just to remind everyone that all the stats that we've got are all from the members area at Fantasy Football Scout. Do have a delve in there. Lots of options to sign up, and there's lots of Opta powered stats to go for there. Also, do press the like button if you've enjoyed this video or podcast, and do remember to subscribe to keep up to date with all our latest videos and podcasts wherever you receive them. But in the meantime, David, thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with your decision to captain Chris Wood.
Same to you as well, Joe.